Alright everybody, the other day I was watching the news and I saw where this guy had passed in South Central Correctional Center. The name was Jim Snick. And I knew the name, I recognized the name, and so I got to looking him up. And this happened, this is going to be a little bit different. What he did happened in Elkland, Missouri. On September 25th, 1987, around 6 a.m., there was a call to the sheriff's department. A guy said he was hurt, been shot. So the sheriff goes out there, and they found him in the kitchen in pain. He was just screaming and yelling in pain. And they asked him who done this to him. He said at first he didn't know. It was an intruder that came in, shot him in the leg, and he grabbed the kitchen knife, and there was a struggle, and he ends up taking the intruder out with his knife, and come to find out it was his own nephew, Kirk Butner. So police get to looking around. They found the 14-year-old Kirk in the hallway. He had a .22 caliber in his right hand. They went upstairs. They found Jim Snick's wife in the bed. She's been shot twice in the head. So one of the sheriff decides to go tell the family of Kirk's parents and everything. They go over to his house. He goes in. He just, something wasn't right. There was no movement. This is a dairy farm, and usually at this time, and I can verify this, there's a lot of movement on the farm. People doing chores, getting things done, feeding animals and stuff. So he goes in, finds Kirk's 3 brothers. It's horrific. I mean, they'd all been shot, most of them twice. They go outside, they look around, they found Jean Buckner, the mother of Kirk, by the barn. Same thing. They couldn't find Steve Buckner. They didn't know where he's at, so they thought maybe he did all this. At least here at the Buckner farm. They found him later at Pleasant View Cemetery. He'd been shot twice too. So in the end, they thought this 14-year-old kid was mad at his parents, mad at everybody, and took out his family and went over and took out his uncle and aunt.
Right now, 7 people are dead. This family is gone. The community is in shock.
There's no one left in this immediate family.
But they had this, Jim Snick and his wife had 2 children, and they was not harmed. This was in the 1980s during the farm crisis, and the Buckner family was doing well. I know it wasn't doing well. It's having problems like a lot of farmers in Missouri was at that time, and barely getting by. And Kurt was working his butt off to try to, not only on the farm, but doing other things, trying to help the family. And so police thought Kirk done this, and so the family was buried, I think, in Timberland Cemetery. Elkland is in Webster County, if anybody wants to look it up. And I'm going to put links to the sources of everything in the description. But one of the teachers called the police department and said, "Hey, I heard that the gun was found in the right hand. And said he's left-handed. Nobody was believing this kid did this. They just having trouble coming to terms with it. You know, and they was meeting at Hannah's Fast Stop right when it first happened, and talking to one. That's kind of like a meeting place, and everybody was just in shock, you know. And at the school, the kids were even more shocked. And some of them said he didn't do it.
This morning, inside the small town's only store, some people were hearing the news for the first time.
Well, I was shocked because, I mean, you know, this community doesn't usually have things like this. And I've lived here for 22 years, and it's not that kind of community.
Today, the store served as an informal news center for neighbors, with dozens calling to check on what they'd heard.
It just, you wouldn't think that something like that would happen when you're that young. At that age. I don't think I could do that, and I don't think anybody else could. And I don't think he done it.
Because everybody's going on about this, police started investigating. First, they wanted to know, how did a 90 to 100-pound kid, 14-year-old kid, drag his father, who's over 200-some pounds, to the cemetery? Then, like I said, he was left-handed, so they was worrying about that. Then they get looking farther, and they find out that this was a .22 caliber pistol that had it was supposed to have a retaining pin. You had to take the retaining pin out to reload it. The gun had to be reloaded at least twice. All these shots, and they found no shell casings either. That was another strange thing. But when they got looking closer, the gun was missing the firing pin. They also found that the kid had been, you know, Kirk had been shot too, once in the back and through the heart. So if he'd been shot fatally, stabbed and all this, how did he get the gun back in his hand? So they then turned their attention, and also there was not very much blood in the hallway. And then police were saying, well, you know, if Jim Schnick defended himself and took out his nephew in the hallway, there should be a lot more blood. So they turned their attention to him. Oh, they had took him to the hospital in Springfield, and come to find out his wounds were superficial. He barely grazed his stomach. The one in the leg was a little bit worse, but it was non-threatening. And they was going to release him that day, but Jim Schnick told him that he wanted to stay in the hospital. So, police questioned him. Now it's October. Police questioned him and went over the story again, and they asked him if he would be willing to take a lie detector test. And he said, yeah, he wasn't feeling good. Could he do it that Monday? So Monday they took him to Springfield for the lie detector test. As they was hooking him up, he confesses in a way. He had, you know, see, they was having an argument. He said he was having arguments with the Buckner family, the father especially, you know. He said the dude was always coming over, borrowing his farm equipment, like his tractor and stuff, or trying to borrow money and stuff, and he was getting tired of it. Also, his wife had told him, according to him, that when they was kids, her brother, who was Steve Buckner, had molested her. So this made him angry. But it comes out that Steve was having an affair with this Nancy Bruner, and he told her that she was divorced. She testified to all this. And she found out later he wasn't, and he said he was going to get a divorce. And so by August of 1987, he told her they was divorced, and they was going to meet in Silver Dollar City, south of Branson, so that they could, introduce the kids to one another. This guy shows up down in Silver Dollar City with his wife. Somehow or another, he kept them apart from talking privately and stuff. But she asked him, this Nancy Bruner asked him, says, what's she doing here? Oh, we'll talk about it later. After this is all over, she goes back and she calls the house, and Jim Schnick's wife answers, and she asks him, are you married? And he said, yeah, well, we're married. What's this about? And so she told him. So now Jim Schnick's wife's mad at him. Plus, he had two $50,000 life insurance policies out on him. So this, we're saying this is the reason he did this, but to hear him tell it on this confession, he went over there to confront him, and the gun accidentally went off. It ends up going off accidentally 2 other times, and the other ones he did. But he had a struggle with Kurt there at that farm, and goes in, and to use his words, he destroyed the other children. That's the words he used.
None turned. I went back into the house. Under my feelings, I destroyed the other 3 children.
He goes back outside, sees that the mother, and gets in a stroke. Gun accidentally, then it goes off again, I guess, and gets her in the back of the head. He sees Kirk still alive, puts him in the truck. He said, I wanted to help him stay alive, I wanted to help him, so he took him back to his farm. Instead of taking him to the hospital, takes him back to the farm. He says he has him over the shoulder. He goes upstairs to tell his wife, and mysteriously the gun goes off twice again. So by that time, he says he's in panic mode, so he goes down there and he stages it like Kirk had done on this. They charged him with all 7. But they dropped 4 of them for some reason, I don't know why. They dropped 4 of them, and he was on charge of 3. And he was given capital punishment. That was later dropped, I think in '92 or something like that, to 3 life sentences. When I met him in prison, I did not like him. For one, he was kind of aloof and to himself. He's one of those type of person. Have you ever met those people that think they're more intelligent than everybody else, and kind of looks down on everybody else? That's kind of the way he was. I'm not saying he wouldn't talk to you. He just, when he would, it was always like he's talking down to you. Like he knows better than you. He's the most intelligent person in the world. So when I saw that picture and that name, I said, man, I want to check out what he's in here for. And I'm glad I didn't hang around with him in prison, man. This is horrible. Anyway, because he passed in May of this year, I wanted to do this story and tell you about what he did in this small town in Missouri, Elkland, Missouri. And thank you guys for watching, and I thank for all the resources that I've looked into, and I'll see you next time.